Alright guys, before we make the guides, I want to fix what we have here. As you noticed, we can't bring anything in, and here, like we used to do before, we can't because it's in a different part of the context. So we basically have to hack this. Well, not really hack it. What we need to do is bring this in somewhere else. What we can do is select copy parameter, and what we can do is create a parameter here. Let's make it a null, for example, and in this null is where we're going to have everything. We'll have our attributes, we're going to delete everything, set it to invisible like we did before, apply, accept. So what can I do now? To edit the parameters, you do it here. For example, I usually put a to-do note as a reminder, so I remember to make changes later if needed. After that, I tap the bed icon on the screen to select the option I want. Then I press the apply button to confirm and update the settings. Once I have applied the changes, I check to see if everything looks right. If I notice something still needs to be changed, I can take further action as necessary. And here, and this is what I'm doing. Before, instead of doing it the other way around, right click and from the channel, copy parameter and paste it here. What does that mean? That whatever I move there will affect here. So let's see if what I'm saying is true. So I have this here. Let's go ahead and set the output now. The output itself is fine as it is. And if I come over here, let's see if it actually works. There, it's working. So now it works from here. Now what I want is to bring it here. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. What I'm going to do is put this toggle, this switch here. I'll put it here. I'll set it to on and off. Here, I'm also going to set the same thing. So if I come from this part here, what I can do is turn it on and off, and now it works. I'm going to remove this null here. Subscribe to the channel. Control and I'm going to put that right here in this specific spot because I don't want to point it out to anyone and I really want no one to see it at all. What I need is the BDB one specifically. Now I need to do exactly the same thing, but this time for both the high and the low. So for the high and the low values, we're going to do exactly the same process, step by step. I'll put it here as well, and this will change the name to on-off BDB just like before. That way everything stays consistent and clear. And we're going to make a new one, a whole new one, where it's going to say, no, what I do is tell the system its own parameter, making sure it knows exactly which parameter is being referred to. I clearly specify its own value or setting, so there is no confusion. After that, I proceed to modify the parameter right now, making any necessary changes based on the current situation. This way, the system always has the correct and updated information it needs to function properly. And I bring this one with me as well. Let's look. And here it is, on, off, and high or low. We'll leave it on low for now, and we'll deactivate the mix. Done, we've fixed that. Now let's make the guides, because I'll say it again. Why did I do that? Because I want all of this here to be my grooming. I don't want to have anything else. Everything, all the grooming will be here, everything clean. So let's make the guides. It's not. So here is the section where the guides will go. These are the pitch guides for reference. Um, I'm always going to make everything blue, really always blue, the skin always red, and the guides like this. So I have to tell it here in geometry what the measurement will be to generate the guides. I can look for it here, or I can just copy and paste. It's going to be this one here. We're going to create the guides on this skin. I select my menu, press Ctrl C to copy it. So now I have it here, and then I right click and paste it there at 10. And here's something I completely forgot. Honestly, I can't lie. I didn't plan for it. I just totally forgot. And yes, juniors and also juniors, damn idiot, that's the mistake. Something very, very, very important in Houdini, especially in grooming and really in everything. The scale. The scale is absolutely essential, and it's something that can very easily be overlooked if you're not paying close attention. In How do I know it's wrong? Because normally I shouldn't have so many guides. So it's going to end up being very heavy. Normally, what you do in Houdini is work with Houdini scale. Ideally, each software has its own scale. So what do I mean by that? If I have, for example, there are some tests called, for instance, Electra, which is a reference geometry test. If I take a look at this piece of geometry and compare its overall size to my character, you can see that it's actually really, really big. This means it will be much slower to move around. So I made a mistake. I got the size wrong. Let's go ahead and fix it. This is turned off, so let's organize this so it's visible. 1 second, it seems something's missing here. It's just not actually connected to the skin. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a transform here, making a small adjustment. And most likely it should be at 0.1. Let's check. I'm going to compare it with Electra. I think now it's too small. Let's make a pin so that every time I move it with the middle click, I can bring up this menu. To start modeling little by little, I'm going to adjust it to the ideal size, which will be so that it fits well. Also, something else, not really necessary, it's just a preference, but something that stands out is that the character isn't centered. What can I do about that in the possible setup? It's called mat size. What I can do is have this here, and what it does is in the HSJ, I set it to 1000 and it puts it on the floor. What I can do, I feel like it's still a little too big, although it's a monster, so it should be a bit bigger than a normal character, but I'll make it a little smaller. 1, 2, 3, I think that size looks good. Okay, so let's save this, save as. I also think it's good that I make mistakes because if I make mistakes, I can solve them and show you how to fix them. Because the problem with some tutorials is that they do everything perfectly, and it's also good to know how to solve problems when they come up. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. I have my guides. Now let's see what happens. I think my guides, 1 second, something's happening, something's going on because I don't see any guides and I also don't see my skin. 1 second, let's check what's happening. For example, this is what sometimes, oh, right, it's on pin. That's what's happening. It's on pin, sorry. Junior, here's the no cooking. So there will be a lot fewer guides. And I think it's going to be a little longer. Okay, if we had to take this to Maya again, scaling is very easy. Simply in the output, what we do is scale it, we multiply it by whatever we scaled it down by, and also multiply the width. Maybe we can look at that later. I'm not sure if I'll do it, but that's what you normally do. You multiply it by whatever you divide it by because we're really dividing it here when we scale. It's actually cooking everything. It's cooking the texture too. Geometry, it's recalculating everything again. Once it finishes calculating, everything will be faster. I also think that's why it was a bit slow. It was too big. That's a mistake, but it's something very normal that can happen. It's not an excuse. It shouldn't have happened to me, but it did. It was a mistake. Look, it keeps going, -10. So this is where you have to think about what you want to do. I have guides. Only my skin is fine. I could say here, where it says density, which is usually a density, I can add more guides or fewer guides. I can tell it here, for example, by using a map, like the one from Mario, Sub-Zero Painter, the Eurus, or my attribute. If you look here, it says skin attribute. You'll see that it constantly says skin attribute or guide attribute, which means, although it's pretty obvious, Skin attribute is something that paints on the geometry, and guide attribute is an attribute that comes from the guide. Although we can paint it on the skin and transfer it to the guides, or paint the guides and transfer it to the skin, it's transparent because I could say it here, but there's a problem here. Because it's not picking up my attribute. When I look here, I don't see any attribute. It should say fish, fuzz, polio. For example, something's going on. I'm going to do a reset, honestly, because I don't know if it's something with the viewport or what. But just to be safe, I'll do it to make sure it's not that. So what happens? This attribute isn't being passed. Let's check what's going on. I come here. It should be passing the attribute here. I'm going to check if my attribute still exists. It would be the peaceful system. So something's happening. Let's check again to see if this is being passed. My skin, where are the guides? It has to be this one. That's fine. And now I think I had copied something wrong. Now I can say Piz, Fuzz, and what is it doing? It generates more guides on this side. I have more attributes here and fewer over here. I can do it like this, or what I can do is another attribute that's full everywhere. So what for? So that it also has guides, enough guides. This one will use this attribute, but for my hair density. Okay, so what can I do with this? Let's turn this off. What I can also do is take a remap, an attribute remap. I use the attribute remap for many things. One thing I can use it for is to change the name. For example, I can have, and I'll do this many times, I can have, for instance, this that says no hair, okay? And I can say Control C, Control B, and I can call it no hair in uppercase, which is going to be my invert. So if I check here, you'll see that I have a new attribute. It's essentially the same as no hair, and if I want to invert it, I just click here and invert it. Now I'm going to do something quite similar. I'm going to take my fuzz, this fuzz I have here, but what I want to do is actually have a new one. Let's see. It's going to be called fuzz. We'll call it fuzz, and this is specifically for the guides, fuzz guides. Let's check. And what do I want to do? I do not want to invert it, but I want to remap it so that everything is red. So what I can do is simply remap it so that everything has a value that is almost 1. Here it is not going to have guides, that is fine, or it could have them, but honestly, I do not care. It is not going to have them here. Here it did not paint well. I do not want that part. I could simply use tap paint attribute to fix that, just to make an adjustment. I do not really need to, but I am going to do it. I will set it to soft, bring in my attribute, which will be the new pitch. Let us deactivate this so we can see it with our brush, and with control, we are going to remove that part. So what do I have here? I have a new map that comes from pitch. Why do I want this? I'm going to convert it from points to primitives because I want a group. What I'm going to do is create a group to put it here. This is something for people coming from Houdini. What I'm basically going to do is a promote, although I'm not cutting geometry. I don't cut it because I want to make the initial one for my own reasons. I don't cut, which you might say, but what can I do? I can convert this attribute from points to primitives. And what that will do is, it's called, in Houdini, I have an attribute promote and a group promote. So what I need here is actually a group because I have to create a group in this situation. I specifically need it to be on points because on primitives, it really does not work well. I want to use the same name so that everything stays consistent. So I'll call it fish with this. The group, and what do I need? The attribute name 11. At sign, attribute name equals 1. What did I do there? I converted what I painted into a group on points, but actually I need it to be on primitives, that is on the faces, okay? So for that, I need the group promote. What do I do? But also, for example, something that's very common that you'll see, I put the name here, but what I can also do is say Control X to remove the name and actually put it here. Here, the name doesn't exist. There's no name, but there is a group one. What I can do is use $OS. What does that mean? Any name I put here is actually the name of my group. If I use mirror click and change this TTTT, it automatically updates. Okay? This is something that will happen constantly. Now, some people use these dollar signs a lot, or I put it when I'm just waking up. So what can I do? I can say, I know that in 100 points, my name is this, and I want to pass it to primitives. I wanted to keep the same name here. I could change the name, but I don't need to. So here it is, for example, I could fix this, but I don't need to. But if I wanted to fix it, for example, I would have to come here and fix this part here. And if I have a reviewer, then I already have a group. So what exactly should I do with this group? I'm going to go to the pitch and place it right here. What happens with this? Now I have constant guides available everywhere. Thank you very much. Unlike if I use the skin attribute, it gives me fewer guides where I painted with a lower value. I don't want that. What do I need? I'm going to remove the color. I want it to be white because I'm going to change the color inside the guides. I want to deactivate the display subdivision so it's lighter for the team compared to the length and the segments. I can also modify that later, but it's not good to start with the pitch, for example, because it's fine there, maybe just a little bit less. So let's go in. I have it here. If I set it to null, I realize that here I have, these are my guides, this is my skin, and if I set it to, this is my video. But this video really doesn't look like what we have here. It doesn't look like anything, nothing at all like our video. Why? Why doesn't it look like that? What happens is that we have to connect the post to a video, and we do that here. We say son chancho and bring it here. Then, for example, here I'm going to put BBV because that's the name I gave it, and filter. And here it says, I know it's in setup. So for it to be set up, output BDV, I click, go in. And now this is my BDV that I created, and this is the low. For example, I'm going to pin it and I can change it to high. Got it? So let's set it to high so that the high doesn't go too high. Something I like to do here, let's remove the pin. I like to name this. And that is, we're always going to use colors, making sure that in every project or situation, colors are consistently included as a key part of our approach. Yellow, and what I do, because I'm going to carefully pass all of this through. It's just a habit I have, something I do regularly to keep things much more organized and tidy in my workspace and in my projects. I don't actually need to do this, but it's just something I do out of preference and comfort. What I can do is exactly what's here. Utang. I can disconnect this, I can hit shift or move it to the side, and now we work with this. I'm going to set it again to blue, red, and yellow, just as before, to keep things consistent and visually clear. Let's do something I don't particularly like. Hold on a second. Let's take a closer look at the tracks. Let's put everything in. And now we can start working with the clicks step by step. But that's going to be another video, so it's not so boring and we don't go on for so long, making sure everyone can follow along easily. Just ready? See you in the next video, folks. A hug. Bye. Do you want coffee? Ready, guys? You've already seen the last video. If you want us to make a clip of the new video, there must be at least 10 comments. If there aren't 10 comments and at least one share, either on LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever you want, and you tag me, I won't make you laugh in the next video. All right? Good luck then. Let me know what you think of the videos. Bye.